is prone to epileptic seizures or strokes based on fast-moving images? No, it's not a joke. People might have some. Nobody? Good. Excellent. Um, since I'm not very entertaining myself, I decided to use some supporting special effects. So this is not a session on how not to fail, because it's going to happen, and also because you got great advice from these other two guys. This is a lesson kind of like a survivalist guide to how to deal with it after it has happened. So I think there is a lot less of this out there, and some of you who are dreading it are probably dreading it because you have no idea what's coming down that path. So what happens afterwards and how to deal with that. That's the theme of this. So a little bit about myself. I've done a lot of things. I've done lingerie design. I graduated from NIFT. I've done software design. I worked for a SaaS company, Salesforce.com, where I built social media products. I came back to India about three and a half years ago. Since then, I've started I've been part of 3 companies. I co-founded 2 of them, and I joined one pretty early. And that's sad violin is for me, by the way. So enjoy that. And out of the 3 companies that I have been part of, 2 are not doing too well. I mean, one is definitely shut down and one is close to shutting down. So this is kind of my sob story, so to say. And what happened was, after the first one shut down, I went to sleep, and the next morning when I woke up, I had this beard. And that was only one of the first things I didn't realize about what I would have to deal with in the aftermath. So, there, let's get that out of the way, right? So, I think there's a lot of stigma to this word, and I think thanks Ashish and the Expect What team to do this session, because there isn't really that much to it, and you can get over it pretty easily, and you even get a nice flashing rainbow at the end of it all. So, got that out of the way. How many of you were familiar with this word already? Okay, that's fantastic too. Does it strike you as funny that we've always had a word in English for feeling miserable about somebody else's success called jealousy, but we have never had a word for feeling happy about somebody else's misery? I mean, this is the base of all humor, right? The first time a comedian slipped on a banana peel and fell down, and all of you laughed at him. This is exactly what was going on, right? So I think there is some amount of schadenfreude with examining failure, because just like that guy who slipped on a banana peel and fell down, there isn't really a lot you can take in terms of, oh, I should not slip on banana peels and fall down. Is that the lesson there? So in general, I'm going to keep it a little more generic and talk about non-specifics, partly because I'm a little too close to some of my failures, and partly because I think it's more useful to talk about the things that have helped me get through some of them instead of how to avoid them. So, was it worth it? Totally. I think any entrepreneur who's gone through that thing and didn't come out completely broke or destitute would tell you that it is worth it. But I'm not one of those entrepreneurs who's going to tell you you should go do it all over again, right? Everybody's got a different life, and you know, some of it, you just look back on it and go like, did I really drink that much last night? Would I go do it again? No. Did I enjoy it? Totally, right? I think sometimes entrepreneurship is like that too. Sometimes you know that you did something stupid, okay, maybe I won't repeat that mistake again. And I'm sure everybody's familiar with this. Insanity, the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And I'm not saying that I won't do anything entrepreneurial anymore. I'm obviously in my 3rd startup, which is actually doing really well. So I'll talk about that last. But yeah, so a lot of entrepreneurs say this, I'm crazy, not stupid. And I actually say the opposite, because I know a lot of people who are way smarter than I am. The least I can hope for is to not be crazy. I'm definitely stupid in comparison to most of the people I know. Okay, so since y'all asked, So this is my gratuitous advice. It's in no particular order. I also spoke to a few other people who have gone through failures, dealt with it, not dealt with it, had a bad time, had a good time, everything. So I'm just going to give you some of them. And I'm going to start with the people advice. And the first advice is don't be a dick. And some of this is really good dating advice too. Don't be a dick. And what do I mean by that? There's this new thing that's been happening in entrepreneurship, especially in India, that in order to be a good entrepreneur, you kind of have to be a dick, right? There is this Steve Jobsian mythology about being an asshole to everybody, and that somehow makes you a better strategist and product thinker and, overall great entrepreneur. Now, the problem is, if you are an entrepreneur, you're already borderline sociopath. Any serial killers here? No? But the point is, you guys are so unhappy with society and the state of products that you quit your job and went and did something else. How much sense does that make? That makes no sense. So you're already on that edge of what is considered rational behavior, right? So don't make it worse by being a dick to other people. If you do this, right, you try not to be a dick to other people, they will support you through the aftermath. And the corollary to this, there's a very popular book called The No Asshole Rule. You guys heard this? It basically says never work with an asshole. Doesn't matter how talented they are. If they are the godchild of Einstein and Gandhi himself, if they are a dick to you, don't work with them. And the point is very clear. You are going to work with these people very hard for a long time, and if things don't go well, you're going to go through some of the toughest times in your life with those people. So don't associate with anyone who is a dick to you or to someone else, especially to someone else. People who are dicks to people who can't give it back to them are the worst kinds of dicks. So the third piece of advice comes from a close friend who went through a really bad trust breakup. And this goes back to don't work with dicks. So the key is build a trust relationship first. If you don't have a trust relationship, all the paper in the world is worthless. All the contracts you sign, all the NDAs, everything that you've got is worthless for someone who you don't trust. They will find a way to screw you over. Or you will find a way to screw them over if you're the dick in that relationship. So trust, after the sanity check of dick or not dick, is probably the most important thing that you should look for in people. This one is actually a lot of fun. This is why I warn people, if you get epileptic strokes and stuff like that, you should leave now. I've seen that teams that work together really well are the ones that play together really well. So if you're able to sit around after work and talk about nothing in particular, or Sendil Gondamani jokes, or Rajnikant movies, or anything at all, that you are able to connect outside of customer feedback and Google Analytics and how much money do we have in the bank this month, then there's a very good chance that you are going to cope with failure in a much better way than the guys who are ultimately so focused on the product and making it successful and making money, but not able to connect outside of that. It's good to be that, but it's important to also connect outside of that. So since we're talking about failure mitigation and how to deal with failure, this is very useful at that point. Communicate constantly, especially with investors. Immediately. So I think the point Utsav was making about how long it takes to get money, that is valid. And one of the things that I've realized painfully, and some of my friends have realized painfully, is that you have to do this for 6 months before you get money immediately. Right? And this is not just about investors. The same is true for a lot of things. You need to communicate the right things to your clients. That feature that we are talking about, that we've been talking about for 3 months, that we've been billing you for 3 months, that's still 3 months away. immediately. So clients, coworkers, everybody communicate frequently and all the time. And everyone must understand the risk. This is one of the things that I think specifically is important to India, because everyone seems to have this fantasy that you start a startup, and not you guys. You guys know the reality because you're listening to a talk about failure. So you know what it's like. But, you know, your parents have probably read something about Narayan Murthy or the Bansals, and they write you a check for 10,000 rupees, and 2 weeks later, they're like, why aren't you IPO yet? We keep hearing about success. They don't hear about failure. I mean, you guys only hearing about failure now because, this song and dance has been put together. But we don't hear about failure enough. And people don't hear about failure enough. And I've seen everyone from angel investors to friends and family to even your coworkers have unrealistic expectations of what kind of startup it is you're running. Maybe you're running a medical devices startup and it's going to take you 10 years to get to clinical trials, right? And people have all these unrealistic expectations based on a very small sample set of startups that they've heard about. So it's important to let everyone know how this is going to play out and what exactly your odds are this year and next year. Sometimes if you survived for 3 years, you're good. Sometimes if you survived for 3 years, you're just getting started. So exactly what the risks are, everyone should know. Spend less money. I mean, I've seen some startups do this. Everybody doesn't need a brand new computer. You can buy secondhand stuff. It's okay. You can work out of your garage. That's okay. I know it's glamorous too, but also it saves you a lot of money. And the reason money is important is that you will always need more of it than you think you do, especially when you fail. You might be thinking, oh my God, failure. The worst thing that's going to happen to me is that people are going to think I'm a fucking loser. But no, you will be a broke fucking loser. And the reason, one of the many reasons that you need money is because even fucking funerals cost money. And it takes anywhere between 40,000 rupees to a lakh to close a company down. If you've not been paying your taxes or filing your taxes, you're going to be slapped with so many fines, you would wish you had never started a company. And I know a lot of you guys are like just winging it or not. How many of you guys have proper accountants? Startups with proper accountants. See, that's still only like 30%. Okay, so if you guys are thinking about risk mitigation on this front, keep some money in the bank for the funeral. Last thing you want to do is to get your casket on loan from the bank. Okay, if you have to close fast. It's painful. I tried to not have gruesome images here, but if you're going to close, it's going to hurt, so you're just going to have to cut it fast. The reason why this is not non-obvious to a lot of people is that a lot of times when you get close to the end, people want to thrash. You're like a fish in shallow water. You're like thrashing, and you want to try this, you want to try that. You are begging and borrowing 1 week, 2 weeks. Now, you have to step back at this point and say, look, is this thrashing going to get me anywhere? A lot of times the pressure comes from outside. People who you have not been communicating with are going to come back and say, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And things like asset sales, all of these things are going to take some time and may not necessarily really help your case at all. So when you have to cut, there is a provision called fast closure for companies. It can get a company closure done in about 3 weeks, I think. So that's something to remember. But that is still only available to you if you've been filing your taxes regularly. So just file your taxes, okay? And if you're going to cut it quickly. It'll never be painless. It'll always bleed. But do it fast. And finally, just let go. Don't mope. Don't grow a beard. Okay? That's bloody cliched, okay? And don't be a hypocrite either. So at the end of the day, just say, okay, you know what? I tried. I'm going to try something else. I'm going to do something else. But be happy. Stay positive. A startup is not the end of your life. If you want to do another startup, great, fantastic. If you have the energy and the stamina to go after it, go do and learn what you did wrong with the last startup and fix those things, obviously. But and hook some mentors in who you think can really help you. But don't do this Devdas business. In the end, it's all good. That's it. Questions?